It finally happened. If you saw a lot of overly happy Range Rover and X5 drivers on the streets earlier this month, that's because realtors and mortgage brokers got an adrenaline shot courtesy of Tiff Macklem and the Bank of Canada on June the 5th. That's right, the central bank finally gave Canadians some financial relief by announcing their first interest rate drop in 4 years. For many, this is a sign of the beginning of the end of a 2-year period of financial restraint, hardship, and uncertainty. But are we anywhere near to being out of the woods just yet? That path may still be long. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for this month's edition of our Greater Vancouver Market Update. If you're looking for unbiased, unspun analysis of the real estate market here in the Lower Mainland, you've come to the right place. Let's get things started as we always do by going over last month's stats before delving into our editorial segment, Boots on the Ground. All right, starting with sales, the local real estate board, now called Greater Vancouver Realtors or GVR, has reported 2,733 total transactions for the month of May. Not exactly a flattering number for what should be the height of the spring market. This represents a 3.5% drop from April. Typically, sales climb month over month from January to May and usually start to decline in June before beginning to rise again for the fall market in September. In fact, last month's sales were nearly 20% below the 10-year average for the month. So, seeing a month-over-month drop from April to May is definitely something to take note of. Having said that, we experienced the same trend not too long ago. In 2022, when the Bank of Canada started their quantitative tightening and raising interest rates, sales from April to May dropped by 9.7%. And guess what happened to the market after that, though? That's right, winter came early and things cooled off very quickly. Listings, on the other hand, continued to trend in the opposite direction, with total inventory reaching 13,600 units in May. This is a near 9% increase month over month. So that supply we've all been talking about since the beginning of time appears to be here after all. In fact, new listings for the month of May were 7% above the 10-year average for the month. So with sales trending down and inventory trending up, our months of inventory jumped to 5 MOI. Remember, months of inventory is kind of the North Star metric in all of this. It lets us know if the market is softening or getting hotter. And seeing it climb like this in the height of the spring market should be concerning to the market bulls out there. From a seasonal perspective, the market should not be softening at this time of the year. And here's the interesting part. According to the board's home price index, the benchmark price of properties in the region continued to inch upward. The exact HPI price for May rose to $1,212,000, which represents another 0.5% increase from the previous month. So, despite all of the other stats telling us one story, our board maintains that prices are continuing to climb with a pretty juicy trajectory over the first 5 months of the year. Read into that last statement what you will, and I'll get into my opinion on this in Boots on the Ground a little bit later. But like I said last month, this may be the strangest period of the market that I've been involved in over the last 14 years of my career. But hey, those are just the numbers, and they only paint a part of the picture. Are rising prices actually what buyers and sellers are experiencing out there? For that, stay tuned and catch our editorial segment called Boots on the Ground in the next few days on our various social feeds. And if you're watching this on YouTube, that portion of the update starts now.
These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do.
The big story this month, of course, is what I alluded to off the top of the update, and that is the Bank of Canada finally reversing course and lowering their overnight rate by 25 basis points to 4.75%. Now, this isn't going to drastically change the lives of many Canadians who have been feeling financial hardship over the last 2 years. A 25 bip drop in rates represents an approximate $16 per month in relief for every $100,000 that is borrowed on variable rate mortgages and lines of credit. But what it does do is provide a glimmer of hope that we have finally turned a corner and that rates will continue to ease off from here. Governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, has been very vocal over the last 24 months and the last 6 to 8 months in particular that the governing council at the central bank will be extremely cautious about the timing of any rate reductions. They've been adamant that they want to make sure they don't reverse course too soon and end up in a situation where they have to backtrack and prolong the current monetary policy, which is putting a lot of financial stress on families in this country. But to be very honest, the timing of this recent rate reduction came as a huge surprise to almost everyone that I've talked to that follows this situation closely, including myself. Personally, I wasn't expecting a rate reduction until sometime in the fall, September at the earliest. So why did it catch so many people off guard? Well, two things immediately come to mind. Number one, political pressure. Despite the fact that the Bank of Canada is supposed to be an apolitical branch of government, meaning that their policy is not supposed to be influenced by politics, let's face it, that's easier said than done in Ottawa. We are in a situation in this country where the governing party or parties, depending on how you want to phrase it, are polling at historically dismal numbers. People are not happy. Politics is a war of attrition. The game is to cling to power. So you're telling me that behind closed doors, Tiff and company aren't being pressured to ease off the gas, whether directly or implicitly? I find that extremely hard to believe. And number two, things may be much worse than we think they are. If the Bank of Canada is truly independent and not being influenced by political pressure, then the internal metrics that they're looking at are probably far worse than we realize. Remember, the whole goal of these rate hikes was to slow the economy, for spending to subside, and for unemployment to rise even. I spoke to one banker recently who told me, you wouldn't believe the amount of personal debt that is being accumulated right now across the board. People are literally living off credit cards and maxing out all possible credit that is available to them. I've never seen anything like it, he said. And that, my friends, is a very slippery slope, one that is very hard to climb out of. Unemployment in this country is rising, currently sitting at 6.2%, up from 6.1% last month. And year over year, it has risen 0.9% when it sat at 5.3%. And the jewel of this country, that's right, I'm talking about you, Alberta, now has hit an unemployment rate of 7.2%. So perhaps the Bank of Canada sees this and is finally ready to change course before the problem of unaffordability has a head-on collision with a problem with unemployment. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about here is something that I touched on in the stats portion of the update, and that's the Real Estate Board's Home Price Index. Now look, I've talked about this a lot on previous episodes. The Home Price Index is an imperfect model, okay? It's simply impossible to lump in together property prices from the Sunshine Coast all the way to Maple Ridge, from 50-year-old one-bedroom condos to brand new $10 million luxury properties, and give an accurate representation of the overall pricing trend in the market. And the fact that the board comes up with this number by way of a proprietary formula that isn't transparent certainly doesn't help. So I'm going to say something here that I probably shouldn't. But looking at this price graph over the last 5 months and reporting to you that prices have been rising while the market has been softening pretty noticeably is, I'm sorry to say, borderline propaganda from the board at this point. If you gathered the top producing realtors in the region and asked them what it takes to sell a property right now, what pricing expectation is realistic? Is it above their most recent comparables or slightly below their most recent comparables? I'm confident that the overwhelming consensus would be that in order to sell, you have to be priced at or below recent comps. At the very least, that's where the final sale price will be. And that is consistent with all the other metrics. When you have over 13,000 listings and less than 3,000 monthly sales, there is no logical explanation why prices would be rising. And they're not. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like there's a mass sell-off happening and the market is taking a nosedive. It's not doing that either. There's a lot more nuance to it than that. But when buyers have a lot of options, no sense of urgency, the cost of borrowing is still as high as it is, and sellers are literally competing against one another. Sellers are competing against one another. Explain to me how prices are being pushed in an upward direction. So please don't piss on me and tell me it's raining. All right, that's it for me for this month. If you enjoyed this content, please like, share, comment, and I'll catch you right back here in about a month's time. Take care, everyone.